What is up, YouTube? Welcome to the Prof Sales YouTube channel, and I've got my good friend Luke from Endless Entrepreneurs with us here tonight. And we've got kind of a special one-off show for you guys. Luke and I have been talking kind of behind the scenes and just wanted to talk to you guys about ways to improve your business. So we thought we would do that. So Luke, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not much. This is long overdue. I'll tell you what. When's the last time we did a show together?
I think like Clinton was president. I don't know. It was a long time.
It was a long time ago. Glad to be here. Excited for the topic. I think this is going to be good. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Somebody Luke said you're on against your former co-host. I don't know. Do you have a co-host?
I don't think so.
It's like, what does that even mean?
Is Chris live right now with Wade still? I think Wade was live with Chris from 10K on the Bay or Daily Refinement.
Oh, that could be. Yeah, he Instagrammed me today about wanting to talk about you and me and him and Steve doing a show.
They're on at 7 though. They should be wrapping up right now.
Yeah, I would think so. And people are filtering the room, and just so you guys know, there's a live chat going on during the show. You'll see it on the replay. And of course, we're going to have some time for some Q&A and so on. We're going to try to keep this at 30 minutes because Luke.
Yeah. So Shannon had a very, very good day at work, and she's accomplished some pretty big things that we need to celebrate tonight. So I'm trying to stay out of the husband doghouse and make sure that I get to celebrate with her because she's done some pretty big things.
So Shannon, if you're watching, I'm forcing Luke to go on only because we'd already posted the show, and I didn't want to look stupid. So
everything is Jason's fault, right?
That's right. Blame me. I'll take it. I'll take the heat. But no, I'm glad you came on, buddy. And you and I. It's so funny. Like when I do shows with people, it's sometimes a struggle to do a show with you in a sense because I'm like, Luke and I agree on like 99.8% of like almost everything. And it's like, and we were talking about our 5 things tonight, to improve your business. And I'm going, I wonder if we'll come up with the same ones, but we didn't talk about this beforehand, did we? We didn't tell our list.
No, we didn't exchange them. So this is going to be interesting to see how close they are.
Yeah. And so, yeah, Karen's not here. She's actually at rugby practice with Ben. And as you can see, I'm not in the warehouse. So my lighting is janky. Apologies. I don't know what's going on. We started a minute or two late. It's one of those things.
Looks fine. Your lighting's good.
So you can only do so much with this. But so again, glad you guys are here tonight. Glad you can make it to the show. So we're going to roll through these. And Luke, do you want to? And we decided we would say these are like the 5 things that you and I, or that you are going to focus on, I guess, this year, the rest of this year, and the 5 things I'm going to focus on to improve. Right? Is that fair?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, 5 things that we are focusing our own businesses. Or focusing on in our own businesses for 2018.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it in reverse order, right? So we're going to start with 5 and work down to 1.
So Luke, do you want to start first and then I'll give my one after that?
So, and I'll give a quick little prelude here. So for those of you who don't know who I am, so I sell on eBay and I consider it part-time. I work and do contracting work as a finance consultant as like a 40-hour week. And then I also do invest in real estate. So I have 1 rental property that's cash flowing right now, and we're looking to buy another one this year. And the reason why I want to set up with that is that one of my primary goals, and number 5, to my business, is to add another property to my portfolio. And I know that sounds like a really like simple goal to do, but for me, it's a lot more complicated process of finding the right fit. Shannon and I have decided that we would like to probably move into more of the short-term rentals for right now. We have a nice long-term rental here in Charlotte. Without going into too much detail, I think the Charlotte market is very hot right now as far as at the top. We're at like the top of like an 8.5, 9-year cycle. So it's a little nerve-wracking to be buying in this market for long-term rentals. So this year, we're going to really be focusing the back half of this year, which means I need to hit these other 4 goals that I have to be able to do that. So I want to add another property and just continue to diversify my businesses.
And so when you add that other property, obviously you're making rental income from it and so on, and, hopefully being cash flow positive. But is the idea just to kind of keep pushing that money into, other properties and so on, just kind of letting it snowball.
Agreed. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, one of the key focal points for me, because I work full-time hours. I work 40 hours a week. Now they're billable hours, but nonetheless, it's a 40-hour work week. I'm trying to funnel all my business income into property investments. So, really triaging that and making sure that I'm growing my wealth, not just generating cash flow all the time. So that's really the big push. And we also, Shannon and I are kind of committed together that we want to focus more on lifestyle with our investments, which is why we're kind of gearing towards that short-term rental. So primarily we're looking at a beach condo right now that's within driving distance, so we can use it and we can rent it, and it can be kind of a multifaceted property.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I think I'm so excited for you and going on that journey, because you and I have talked about, that's a journey I'd like to take at some point too, but I've kind of got a couple of irons in the fire. So my number 5 is kind of a strange one, and I had to think about this a little bit. And my CPA was here in the chat earlier. I don't know if he still is. You can catch him on Mr. CPA here on YouTube as well. He has a channel. He's just started, and it's to streamline my accounts. I had a long conversation with him yesterday about PayPal, and PayPal doesn't talk the best sometimes with QuickBooks Online. Sometimes there's some integration issues, and I was trying to reconcile my books to do the corporate tax return and so on. And I realized that I had all these different financial accounts where money was coming in, going out. I mean, I had thousands of transactions in PayPal alone. And it kind of, even though computers are great at sort of aggregating all this data on the back end, I really want to have a very simple model of business here. And I don't need so much complexity in terms of my financial account. So one of the things I want to do this year is I'm going to actually try to move away. I know this sounds crazy, move away from PayPal as much as possible, and just use my bank account. That'll be the only thing really connected to that. Now, obviously on eBay, PayPal is the primary payment processor, but that's going away. Eventually, it looks like, as they bring on this new payment processor. And I'm going to jump on board with that as quick as I can, because one of the things that's great about Amazon is that, you get paid on Amazon, it goes to your bank account 2 weeks later, you're done. There's not this third-party intermediary that you have to go through. And I really, really like that about that. So I know it doesn't seem like a big, huge thing, but I am such a minimalist when it comes to financial stuff like that. So I really want to streamline all of my accounts this year and make it very, very simple, so I don't have much to keep up with.
And so is your goal with that to make sure that every source of income you have, so whether it be social media, YouTube stuff, whether it be your eBay business or merch by Amazon, whatever, you want them all to funnel into one account, clean and easy, into QuickBooks, so that it's easy to reconcile? Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah, and I bank with a large bank, and they have a lot of functionality. And if I need to pay somebody or receive money from somebody, I can do it. PayPal is great, and it's had its day, but I'm just finding that I don't really need the same level of use out of it. So I'm just trying to get a little leaner.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And even though it's not on my list, I would say that's definitely something I'm always striving towards, because I hate complexity. I mean, all complexity does is chew up your time. It chews up your time and takes away ROI from your business. So,
what's your number 4, sir?
Oh, number 4. I want to make sure I go in order here. All right. So, and these probably seem simple, but to me, I'm if I have simple, discrete goals that I'm focused on, I get really good outcomes. And so I just want to keep vlogging daily. And for those of you who do follow my channels, I think I'm on 24, today will be 25 days in a row of vlogging. And it's a very selfish endeavor. It's not like the view counts are crazy and I'm making all this money off vlogging or anything like that. Although I hope that in the future, maybe I will be able to get a free vacation or 2 out of it. That would be nice for Shannon. I think that would go a long way towards the support from her. But it's held me accountable at a different level that I've ever been held accountable to by myself. And really squeezing all the minutes out of the day all the time. And it was before, I felt like I already held myself to a high standard. But the scrutiny that I now put myself under as I'm thinking about how I'm going to document my day and phase my day is just at a whole nother level. I didn't know it was possible. And it's not a burden. It's just I'm getting so much more done, and I'm thinking so much more strategically. And so I just want to keep that scrutiny on myself. And I think that that's why vlogging daily is just going to be a big deal for me.
Do you find, I love that, because and creating content every day is challenging. It really is. But do you find that in doing that, I was always curious about, because I've never done it like that consistently at all. But do you find that like it sort of really forces you to reconsider how your mindset is and what your goals are and your processes, just because you're like, there's an accountability there, like you're having to say it out loud to people and tell them what you're doing in your life?
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm going to document every day, I want to be able to back it up. And so that's a huge deal for me. And it just, the accountability, like that's the only word that comes to mind every time, is accountability is enormous. And before I go too much further, I want to give a shout out to Wade here. Just gave an enormous super chat to Jason here, $50. I mean, nice. Huge. Wade is grown to be a big part of this community, this reseller community. He recently, and I'm going to plug this for you, Wade. He just left his job. So he is a full-time reseller now. He announced that publicly. It's funny, I just sent a message, I think yesterday or today, congratulated him on it. So he's got some pretty cool content. He's built his business in a very, very fast manner, and couldn't be happier for him. So thanks for that, Wade.
Wade, thank you so much, my friend. And we've got to get together and get some shows together too, because we just haven't gotten the chance to connect yet, like, on a show and so on. But I do watch your stuff and I follow you on Instagram, and congrats on leaving the job, man. That is such a huge win, I think, just for anybody. Like I always recommend, like I was talking to a guy last night and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my job and being an entrepreneur and doing some stuff. And I'm like, you should do it. You should do it. Yeah. Yep. You'll figure it out. So thank you again, Wade, man. Very, very generous of you. Yeah, I'll take Luke out to dinner. That's what we'll do.
That's perfect.
That's not weird at all.
No, it's not weird. No. Why don't you jump into 4? I want to hear your 4th one here.
Number 4. This is one that I committed to in 2017 and had some great momentum around it for the beginning of the year, and then kind of lost some steam, but I'm starting to pick back up this year. And that's my business education. I am definitely making a push to read more books, to listen to more podcasts, because here is what I found every time I do that. Every time I read something, like I shared the book I was reading with you the other day, A Man for All Markets, which is about a mathematician who learned how to beat blackjack of all things, as well as started hedge funds. But you get all these great ideas that come from these sources of education that you don't even expect. And all of a sudden you realize, you're reading something, you're like, man, that kind of applies to what I'm doing or what I thought about doing, or that was a path. I mean, it's not all just like reselling and, YouTube. And so, I mean, it's things in other categories as well. And I have become like more of a nonfiction reader as I've gotten older and older. So I really like to learn things that'll push me, that will educate me, and then I can use obviously in my business and so on. So that is definitely something I'm going to continue to grow with this year.
That one is not on my list, but I can't echo that enough. I mean, it's funny. I can look back in the last 2 years, and I'm curious to see if you feel the same way. The times when I was reading the most and pouring into myself the most, my business grew like this. And my ideas and things I tested. And when I stopped, because I just kind of got into that grind, it was like that was when I plateaued or started to dip a little bit. I mean, there's a direct correlation with it. There's 100%.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's awesome. That's great. What's your next book on tap? Just curious.
You put me on the spot.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about it before we started the show. I'll think of it by the end of the show, hopefully.
You're fine. You're fine. I can't recommend enough. If you haven't read Compound Effect, which I'm guessing you may have already, by Darren Hardy, it's like my favorite. Nice. Probably top 5 ever.
I haven't read that one. I'll have to check it out.
Yep, that's your list.
You're number 3.
Number 3 for me. All right. So this one is not business related, but I think it has a huge impact on business for me. And that is really buying into a holistic, not holistic's a bad word, but just a consistent fitness type routine. I've been very on and off for probably 2.5 years. I've dealt with back issues. As I get going, I kind of get off. Same with eating. And I, again, just like the self-education, right? Like the business education, I have found for myself, and I know it's not for everyone, but like I have a direct correlation. When I am not working out like 3 or 4 days a week and just keep my mind clear, I get in these very murky mindsets. And so my mind isn't fresh. I'm not having ideas the same way. I'm not thinking outside the box. I get stuck in a very simple track. Sometimes I get lazy. That's the other thing that happens to me is I end up just kind of migrating to the couch a lot more and, working on my laptop from there. For me, it's just a huge one that I need to get better about focusing on that balance aspect. And the big thing for me is that Shannon and I have partnered together in this now for this year, which has been huge because now I'm getting balance back in my life and getting fitness all in one activity. So it's really kind of been like a hack, right? It's like I'm getting a full hour with Shannon and working out all at the same time. But that's just going to be something that we found is working really well for us. And I need to for 2018 and not have it be one of those peaks and valleys ones for me, because I've noticed a massive difference in the focus on my businesses.
Yeah, man, that is so good. And I wish now I'd put it on my list because every time going back to the book I was just reading, the guy said every time he said he felt like he's 85 years old now. The guy who wrote the book, he said he felt like that every hour he spent working out gave him another day of health, another healthy day on earth. And so he always put in like 5 hours a week, and because it really does, because it frees your mind, it de-stresses you. Obviously it's good for you. And we tend to neglect it. We get in work mode, we get in this mode, that mode, but man, that is so good. I've been following you guys' journey on the CrossFit, and I think that's awesome. So I hope you guys continue with that.
Absolutely.
Number three for
number
me,
3, my friend.
Number 3, to continue diversifying my revenue streams. So I started doing this last year, and I'm a big fan of, the belief that, hey, if you put all your eggs in one basket, at some point, the bottom of that basket's going to fall out. Or it might. So you really need to sort of diversify, how you're bringing in income and so on. And so this year, like just today, as a matter of fact, I listed a lot of the things I'm selling for consignment on Facebook to try to sell locally. I haven't really done much of that before. I've started getting some nibbles on it, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how that works. And then, just cross-listing in general. And of course, I just recently opened the Poshmark account, which I haven't listed on, but I will. I'm still just kind of figuring out exactly what I want to put on there and how. But, I think there's a great sense of security in just this idea of diversifying your revenue streams, whatever they are, so that if one dries up, another one's there maybe to take up the slack. It's not the end of the world. That's why I always laugh when, I've talked about this before, people talk about, oh, I've got the security of a job. I'm like, that's like you got one revenue stream. Like if that goes away, you're screwed. So I'm definitely going to keep working on diversifying that even more. I've got some other things on tap. They're going to be starting up really, really soon, which I'll be talking about. So I'm really excited about continuing to diversify the way the money comes in the door.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, and I think a couple more I have that kind of dive into that, but not as directly as you just said. And there are platforms emerging, right, and reselling that it's like you need to test and taste and figure out if they're for you so that you're continuing to eliminate risk in your life. And I think that that's how you put it so perfectly, right? It's like, don't depend on something so much that when all the eggs are in that basket, the bottom falls out. And like, I definitely tipped that way in 2017, and I've kind of swayed back the other way now. How do you, and I guess my question to you is, how do you plan to grow those other streams while not letting one shrink? So do you have any strategies for that, or any tips for people watching? Because I think that's the biggest roadblock all of us fall into is we start to focus on another one to grow it, and the other one stops growing because we did an unequal, effort there.
Well, I think with the cross-listing part, what I've realized, I started with the consignment items because I figured it as, well, I didn't spend the time to go source these items. So cross-listing them, is a little more time, but I was able to pull a pretty quick process for pulling them off of the eBay items, and even because I went back and did these. I didn't do these originally when I started. It's a great question. And I think you got to push towards, passive models where you put in work, you put in the time, you put in the energy, and then it's just a little bit of maintenance. And it'll actually tie in a little bit with my number 1. So I'll kind of save some of that for number 1.
That's fair. No, that's fair. No worries. So I'm on to number 2 now, right?
Right.
All right. So similar to you is I want this. So by the end of 2018, I would like to solidify an income stream that is 100% outsourced. And I'm going to elaborate on that a little more because I think that there are some very specific niches within the reseller community that have that. But for me, so I've started to automate my eBay business. I have 2 listers that I pay as like contractors for me, basically. So I'm really focused on sourcing the shipping and then kind of like the quality checks of the listings. I have YouTube, which is like, it's a small little bit of income. We have rental property, which is I would consider like my secondary one next to my contracting and eBay. But I really want a third one that I can spend maybe a half hour to an hour a day and just manage and subcontract out and let it grow. And for me, that's going to be merch by Amazon. So I'm definitely late to the party as far as some of the early adopters, but it's still the infancy of that. In my opinion, it's the infancy of the industry. So that's one that has the ability, in my opinion, you can completely outsource the design work. The ideas still have to come from you, which is why I think that it's like that hour to half hour a day of brainstorming and outsourcing. But I'm willing to dump a little bit of my profit from my eBay business into this steadily throughout the year to try and grow it. And I just want to give it a go till the end of 2018. And if it flops, it flops. But I want to take the next 6 to 8 months and really dive into it, just consistently pouring into it and see what happens, because I think having that diversification can be huge for me in the long run.
Yeah, that is so good. And I love like you've already identified a stream and so on. And this is kind of the same question you asked to me. It's like, how do you figure out how much time and energy to pour into one without letting other ones suffer? I mean, I know you have like ridiculous energy because you're Luke, but we all know that. But I mean, how do you keep from, because obviously with something new, you've got to spend a little bit extra time, energy, right, to get it going.
So my general strategy was, as soon as I found my 2 listers, and I want to find a third one, I'm still working on that. But as soon as I found those, the amount of time that I have gained back in my day is enormous. Like, it's quite a few hours in every day that I'm not hauling inventory, picturing it, moving it downstairs, listing it, packaging. There's probably 70% of the time it takes me to list an item is now automated. So I'm taking half of that time. Not even half, probably 25% of that time, I'm devoting it to vlogging, which is the one I referred to earlier. And then I'm going to take another 25% and I'm throwing it into that steady stream of income we just talked about and trying to develop merch by Amazon. And then, believe it or not, just to touch on the other 50% of that's where I'm throwing it into the fitness and the balance and those other things. Now that I'm automating those other things, I'm pouring it back into myself. Right. So those are kind of the 3 ways the strategies that I'm taking.
That's awesome, man. That's great. So yeah, I wish we were doing more merch, but man, we just kind of fell off on it, honestly. It's just like we got into other things.
Yeah, your mind gets pulled in a lot of directions. It makes it tough.
Plus, I'm just not design oriented at all. So. My number 2, I've been talking about a lot recently, and I think it's the easiest way to increase your bottom line, at least my bottom line. And that's just quite honestly to raise the average selling price of the items I'm selling. And my strategy for that has been a kind of twofold. One has been to focus on consignment items that sell for at least $50 or more, because that's going to push that up, and it still will be enough profit for me after fees and so on, and my fee and so on to make it worth it. But it also kind of gives me some product knowledge about what will sell for that sort of price point on the platform and kind of what sell-through is that I can get without having to risk the capital and the time to source it, which has been kind of an interesting side benefit. Right. But the second thing I've been doing this year is sourcing more new items, which tend to sell for more anyway, just by them being new. So it's pushed me out of some of the bread and butter stuff I've done in the past, like pre-owned jeans, pre-owned shoes, and so on. And obviously pushing me towards, newer items and so on, which will probably shrink my store down, but push, actual dollars up that I'm making in profit, just because I'll be selling for a higher dollar amount, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And that strategy is the ultimate hack to scaling a business, right? Without having to add help. Right. I've watched you over the last quarter and a half here evolve your business, and it's been awesome to watch. Like the way that you've been able to scale and adopt a new model and really just, A, increase your average sell price, but B, you're making more money in less time. Like that's what you've done with your business, and it's super impressive. So
thanks.
I don't have a lot of questions for you other than just applaud the direction you're going, because it's really awesome to watch. So that's a great one for sure.
Are we at number 1?
We are all the way down to number 1, believe it or not. So it's funny. The one you just gave, I had on my list, and then I took it off when I was rethinking through it, because That is a goal. Always has been a goal to increase average sell price. But I focused so much on the first half of the year that it's kind of like my plan's already in motion. So I figured it was kind of copying out if I did that one, for me at least. So I did is I said, I want, and this is the scary one for me, and that's why I made it number one, because I don't really know how to do it yet. But I need to find a steady supplier, a steady bulk purchase supplier. So I've been pretty successful at finding one-offs. Like I feel like I've been pretty decent at finding opportunities for, 200 pieces here, 500 pieces here, 3,000 pieces last year. But I've been good at finding some things here and there, but I haven't found the consistency of inventory. And that's the one piece of automation that I'm really missing from my eBay business, right? Like I feel like you, Jason, to a point, have automated a bit of that, whereas like your consignment model for sure is awesome. Like you've kind of unlocked that, but in my own way, I haven't unlocked that yet. And that's something I need to figure out. Like, and I don't really know how, but that's going to be my number one thing, is focusing on finding a supplier that can, once I can automate the sourcing, and I've already automated the listing, now I've taken myself very far out of my business besides the overarching QA part of it, the quality piece, and then the shipping piece. So that's kind of, I think that's my number one to focus on. And I'm probably going to be leaning on a lot of other resellers like Jason and other people just to brainstorm and network with, because I think at the end of the day, the piece I'm missing is just the brainstorming and the networking that comes with that. Because if it was easy to find them, everyone would have them, and everyone doesn't because it's not easy. And so I think that's my number one thing that I want to focus on.
Yeah, no, that's probably the biggest challenge. That's like a more advanced version of the question. Well, what do you sell?
Right, right.
But it's at a much higher level, because you're trying to you're trying to automate more of the process and, bring in the supply to you, whether you having to go get the supply, which obviously allows you to scale and grow a lot faster and grow in different directions even, that you can't do when, again, it all comes back to time, right, my friend? Just like, how do you maximize, each minute, each hour you put in and get the most maximum return on that without driving yourself crazy?
Right.
So, and anytime you can automate a process, but I think we'll talk offline, Luke. So I got some other thoughts on that, but you will absolutely get there with that, because you're way too smart not to. And then I will steal whatever it is you're doing and use it for myself.
But stealing with sharing, it's different.
I mean, sharing, yeah, sharing is caring.
Coveted number one. I want to hear yours now.
Coveted number one. Well, it's similar to like one you had, I guess, a few back, or some of the things you said. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and somebody was, I think it might have been Pat Flynn, one of his, but I can't remember. And someone was talking about how, maybe it was Stephen Peterson, how they were they were the bottleneck in their business. And I realized that I need to plan for me to be obsolete. Greg Murphy has a book selling program he calls Bust Proof Business, and he's been on Rakin's show a few times. And basically the premise is, hey, if I got hit by a bus, my business could keep going because I've built all these systems that will allow it to do it. So I am planning for my obsolescence. And what that means is not that I'm going to quit doing anything. It just means that the things that I can automate and delegate and consolidate, I am planning to get to do all those things, because I realize that, like, I don't want to be doing all those things 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And the way you do that, at least from what I've read and what I understand, is you document your processes. You document what you do. Even kind of minutia stuff like, okay, this is how I list an item. And that's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to make you more focused on your process, and is that really the best way to be doing it? But two, when you do realize that you can bring in some sort of automation to do it, or you bring a person to do it, or you outsource it to a VA like you have with your listings, Luke, which is so amazing. Like, you realize now where the problems were. You realize, like, oh, I was doing it this way, but that's not really easy to explain to someone because it all depended on me, and I'm always going to be the bottleneck if that's the case. So I need to do it a different way. I want to work on my business, not in it. I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's true. So and if you don't ever do that, I think you run the risk of this becoming, you just bought yourself a job. And that's, kind of what some of this reselling game can become. You're just buying yourself a job. It's like, oh, I got to go buy 150 items and I got to list 150 items. And, the next thing you know, 5-10 years have gone by and you're still right where you were and nothing's really improved or maybe gotten worse, but it's the same. So I'm trying to make Prof sales obsolete. You heard it here first. That's my goal.
I mean, everything you said was just dead on and amazing, right? Like, we don't think about that enough either, right? And I think a lot of it is the thrill with reselling anyways, right? When people get into reselling, it's the thrill of the hunt, right? It's the thrill of flipping it. And you forget about that it's a business, right? It's because usually it's a hobby, and then it's more than a hobby because you're making a decent amount of money. And then it's, oh, maybe I can do this full time. But it's never I want to create a business. It's I just want to do this full time. And so I think just what you said, right? You're trading it for a job happens. And the fact that, like, that's such an interesting perspective, right? To think about making yourself obsolete. I like that. And I got to tell you, so documenting your process, that's so much harder than you think.
It is.
So the two people I have listing, like, thank goodness that I started with other resellers because they've been giving me more feedback than I can give them on things that don't work, right? Like, they've been, and I remember Chris telling me this back when he was chesting out people. He was learning so much from people coming in on how, like, even simple things like with jeans. Like, I put, brand and the color and the sizing and the measurements. I gave him everything. You know what I forgot? What's the style? Like, did you look in the style tag? But, like, you don't think like I do it in my head every time automatically. I don't even think twice about it. And so it's just actually document. I think that's so huge. And I think that's where I've started now, is I'm starting to document those things. So I think that's it's a great way for anyone. Yeah. Not even just, I know you're at that stage where you want to do that, but for anyone watching, like, you can start doing that right now. Even if you don't plan to hire someone to grow, you can still start documenting and improving and putting those under scrutiny.
Yeah. And I know a lot of us think, oh, I'm just going to go in there and do it. I don't need to document anything or anything. But I'm like, your system's not really perfect. And it's probably not even perfect for you. And there's probably days you do it one way and then days you do it a slightly different way and you don't even realize it. But when you kind of have an SOP sitting there, like, hey, this is how I do it. It forces you to really think about, well, is this the best way to do it? And maybe it is the best way for, your setup, but it's a great process. And I'm definitely on board with doing that this year.
That's awesome. Well, like I said before, I'm looking forward to just watching your business keep evolving. I mean, for those of you who watch you on a steady basis, they've gotten to see the evolution, but it's just crazy. Some of the principles and the ideas that you've executed on in such a short amount of time has been really, really fun to watch. So I'm very impressed, and I'm very looking forward to see how 2018 finishes for you.
It's going to be great for both of us, my friend. Luke and I are like brothers from another mother in some way. So I think, we've just had lots of conversations and so on. So
it all started at Goodwill and IHOP.
I know. And Karen's suspicious, but hey, he's like, who is this guy? He's in charge. He's always so suspicious. God bless her. So, well, look, I see like Shannon is here in the chat. So
is she in the chat?
She is. She's
talking here. Oh, she is. That's my wife saying, come celebrate with me because I just got a massive promotion at work because she's been busting their butt for a long time. So that's what she's saying. But before I go, we do need to plug a little bit here. And I'll let you go ahead and plug it.
What am I plugging? I forgot.
Oh, I'll plug it then. So we are going to start a rhythm. So
yes,
each week we are going to take your questions, and those of you who watched my vlog the other night, you saw me plug. We actually are going to give away. I'm going to give away a Gary V Crushing It book at the first show, which will be next week on Thursday. You need to go to my vlog video, and you need to leave a comment with your question there to win the book. And you also, I'm adding in contingency now since you're watching, no get out of jail free cards in this one. You need to email Jason what the question is because he's going to start filtering through them and selecting them. We're going to take all the questions from there, and it's going to be kind of basically a Q&A show that's pre-selected. So we're going to come with probably the most common themes each week, and we're going to answer those questions, and we're going to dive really deep into them. So instead of going really wide with a bunch of topics, we're going to pick 2 or 3 or 4 questions, and we're going to go super deep with them, and we're going to try to address them each week. So just either send emails, go leave the comment there. Comment needs to be on my video. I already announced it that way, so I got to hold that standard. Comment needs to be with the question on the bottom of my vlog to be eligible to win. We will draw for that during the show and give that away. And I have 2 more copies, so over the next couple of weeks, we'll start to give those away as well. But looking forward to getting that going. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think we're going to have some pretty valuable content for everyone.
Yeah, that's cool, like, giving away the books. And I provided my email is there in the chat, but you can also find it here on the channel at decidestartsucceed.com. And yeah, it's going to be a fun show. And Luke and I have been, we just had to find the right timing and the right situation to come
Make it
back,
happen.
because and it's so funny. We did this list, and they're all 10 different things, and we didn't talk about it at all. And I'm like, but we also agree on so much. So it's always so great to bounce things off you, my friend. Really enjoy it. I really enjoy this show too. Thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry to cut it short. We will be going an hour next week, but this is a special occasion. I need to go celebrate with my better half. So,
well, get to it, my friend. Shannon, congrats. I know you're listening there, and that is awesome. So happy for you guys. And we'll catch you guys back next Thursday here with me and Luke.
Next Thursday, you guys better be there. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
That's going to do it, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care.